Hey everyone, we usually think of fasting as, a personal thing, a private act of devotion. But what if it's something way bigger than that? Today, we're going to explore fasting as this powerful biblical response for when God says he's about to do something. So let's get into it.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to look at the dynamic between God's promise and our response. Then we'll dive into the biblical call to fast. We'll also break down two very different kinds of fasting, look at three incredible stories of restoration, and then boil it all down to four core principles you can really grab onto.
All right, first things first, let's get this core idea down. When God declares his purpose, when he says he's going to do something, it is not a spectator sport. It's actually an invitation for us to get in the game and actively participate. And that leads to this huge question, right? If God's already promised the outcome, what's our part to play? The key is, it's not about trying to change God's mind. It's about aligning our hearts with his plan. Check out this verse from Ezekiel. It reveals this fascinating principle. God lays out this long, beautiful list of all the amazing things he's going to do for Israel. But then he says, even after all that, he expects them to inquire of him for it. You see, his promises aren't meant to make us passive. They're meant to wake us up and get us seeking him. And that word, inquire, it's not just a casual question. In the original Hebrew, it means to seek God with this deep, intentional, great earnestness. It's a passionate pursuit. So here's the bottom line. God's promises are supposed to stir us to pray, not put us to sleep.
Okay, so if we're supposed to be seeking God with this great earnestness, what does that actually look like in practice? Well, that leads us directly to the specific act of fasting. It turns out, when God is on the move, he often looks for a very particular kind of response from his people.
The book of Joel gives us this incredible blueprint. It starts with this picture of complete and utter devastation, but it ends with total restoration. And right in the middle, it tells us the exact response that bridges that gap. And the instruction is crystal clear and it's urgent. It's not some quiet, private suggestion. It's a public command. Consecrate a fast. This is meant to be a corporate, all-in, desperate cry to God from everyone together. Now, this is really important because not all fasting is created equal in God's eyes. The prophet Isaiah draws this super sharp distinction between a fast that God completely rejects and one that he actually chooses and honors. Okay, so on the left, you've got the unacceptable fast. This is fasting with all the wrong motives. It's just going through the motions, being critical of others, it's selfish, and it just leads to more conflict. It's basically fasting for show. But then, on the right, you have the fast that God has chosen. And this one is completely different. Its focus is outward. It's about liberating other people, being charitable in a practical way, and it comes from a genuinely humble heart. This is the kind of fasting that leads to a breakthrough. And just listen to the results God promises for this kind of fast. They are absolutely staggering. Light, speedy healing, protection, answered prayer, nonstop guidance, and even becoming someone who brings restoration to others. It's no joke. This is considered one of the most jam-packed lists of promises in the entire Bible. Okay, so the theory is great, but what does this look like in real life? Let's jump into some incredible stories of restoration. We're going to look at three leaders who are facing these massive national crises, and they saw history itself change because of the power of fasting. First up is Ezra. So imagine this. He's leading this group of people back to Jerusalem, and they're carrying all the sacred, incredibly valuable treasures for the temple. The journey is long, it's dangerous, and it's full of robbers and hostile groups. The stakes are just unbelievably high. And here's the twist. Ezra had already told the king how powerful and protective his God was. So if he turned around and asked for an army escort, it would have made his words look empty. He had to put his money where his mouth was. So he chose to depend on God alone, and his go-to response was to call for a fast. And the result? It was a stunning, complete victory. The power of their prayer and fasting literally neutralized every single threat along the way. They arrived perfectly safe. Not one person, not one sacred vessel was lost. It was a direct, undeniable answer to their earnest seeking. Next, let's look at Nehemiah. He gets this absolutely devastating report from Jerusalem. The city walls are just piles of rubble, the gates have been torched, and the people are living in shame and distress. The whole situation just seems totally hopeless. Now, what was Nehemiah's first move? It wasn't to start drafting blueprints or making a strategic plan. His immediate response was to weep, mourn, fast, and pray for days on end. That period of just humbling himself before God was the very thing that launched everything that came next. God swung the doors wide open, gave him crazy favor with the king, and he got full authority and all the supplies he needed to get the city rebuilt. And finally, we get to Esther. Her crisis was, well, maybe the most terrifying of all. An official legal decree backed by the entire Persian Empire had gone out, calling for the complete annihilation of every single Jewish person on one specific day. We're talking about a state-sponsored genocide.
Faced with this certain death, what did Esther do? She turned to a spiritual weapon. She called for a 3-day all-out fast. And the result is one of the most dramatic, jaw-dropping turnarounds in history. The king's favor was granted, the evil plan was totally reversed, their enemy was defeated, and the entire nation was saved.
And that brings us to our final section. After hearing those incredible stories, what are the common threads? What are the big takeaways? Let's distill this whole practice of fasting down into 4 foundational principles. Okay, number 1, self-denial. It's basically looking at your own body and saying, nope, you're not the boss of me. Number 2, self-humbling. God can definitely humble us, but fasting is a way we choose to humble our own souls before him. 3 is right priorities. Fasting is like a physical declaration that says my connection with God is more important than my physical needs. And finally, number 4, dependence upon God. This is so powerful. It's an admission that says, I can't do this. I don't have the answer. I'm looking completely and totally to you. And this whole idea of self-denial, it's not some side issue. It's right at the very heart of what it means to follow Jesus. He himself said it was a non-negotiable condition. Fasting is just a very real, very practical way of living that out. And we're going to end on this thought. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gives instructions on 3 things: prayer, giving, and fasting. And for all 3, he uses the exact same phrasing. He says, when you do it, not if you do it. It's almost like he just assumed that his followers would be people who fast. So the question that leaves us with is, what does that expectation mean for us today?